Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, welcome all in person, and many of them joined from our Zoom, and this is also being in YouTube. So first of all, thank you for coming here today. So before we get started, I have only one question I'll ask, and then introduce you. What is the name of our movement? What is the name of our movement, audience? ISKCON, and ISKCON stands for? Very good, thank you. That's where the topic is going to be. So we want to make that ISKCON is International Society for Krishna Consciousness. It's nice, there's no any difference between whether it's Indian or American, Australian, whatever it may be, but the purpose is to spread this knowledge to everyone. So it's very easy to change this topic Prabhu's post here to attracting Indian devotees. We are good at that one. Therefore, more than International Society for Krishna Consciousness, you know what it is. I stands for, right? So Indian Society. So it's very important that in St. Louis we have a big dream, but you know or you don't know the history of St. Louis. Many years back, many great devotees sprouted from St. Louis. It's been a center for book distribution. Many great devotees, Prabhupada disciples, brahmacharis, many people were in St. Louis. It was less of Indians and more of Westerners. And we want to have more of Indians and more of Westerners. Right? So we don't want to on one side, so we want to balance. So if you remember in February, we had a summit. In a summit, one of the items that came out in our summit over here, that you all hope you all remember still these trees that we walked out, right? On the right top, it says that when we are actively engaged in Prabhupada's mission of outreach and sharing Krishna consciousness, what will we be doing? It's written there. It's all your points. Who attended that outreach, that summit. Outreach activities, university, preaching, book distribution, prasadam distribution. So we are frankly have to admit that we are very weak in those areas. We know, even though we have the fruits very close by, we are still not able to tap that for various reasons. But we have invited this very special soul today in his busy schedule, His Grace Kalakantha Prabhu. I'm going to read out a few things because his glory is just goes. For the rest of the 1 hour, I may start speaking about it. He already told me, please don't do too much of introduction. In 1972, at age of 18, after receiving 3 Isha Upanishad from a Harinam party he met while at work downtown. Kalakantha Prabhu joined small ISKCON Portland Temple in 1973. He joined when I was born. Srila Prabhupada accepted him as a first and second initiated disciple. Over his 10-year brahmachari career, he distributed books on the BBT Library Party, served as a Bhakta leader in ISKCON Los Angeles, and opened a college preaching center in Newark, Delaware. Subsequently, Kalakantha Prabhu helped ISKCON North America shift to a congregationally based movement, because those days have been mostly temple based. So Prabhu has been a big instrument on changing the dynamics of ISKCON, both as a temple president and a consultant. While at that time, he also served as an editor for Back to God magazines and as a secretary for ISKCON governing GBC. For the past 12 years, he has been developing the Krishna House projects in Gainesville. You know, Rupa Vilas Prabhu, his daughter, also got very well trained by Prabhu in Gainesville. Florida into a dynamic and successful college preaching center, in addition to numerous articles in Back to God. Kalakantha Prabhu has authored several popular books, including A God Who Dances and Bhagavad Gita, the Song of Divine. He has also written ISKCON manuals on fund development and dispute resolution. It's all needed for us, right? Kalakantha Prabhu has served as an elected councilman in La Crosse,
Lacrosse.
Florida, and as a volunteer mediator in the Florida state court system. Since 1982, Kalakantha Prabhu has been married to his god sister, Chitamitra Mataji. They have 3 children and 2 grandchildren. Since 1992, he has supported his family through a part-time, these are all extras, but may not be interest of us. He is a member of Sadhu Sangha men's group, meeting weekly for 25 years. When not serving or working, he enjoys writing. I think this has to be updated. I'm not sure where is the question of not serving. This has to be updated. But anyway, but also Prabhu as a Gradasa is also an initiating guru. So let us all welcome wholeheartedly and hope Prabhu can make more visits to St. Louis. There's a seed that he's going to put here in St. Louis and help us how we can develop the Western preaching here, which is what is very important. By the way, just a small note for you, Prabhu. We had a summit 3 months back. And one of the things, the initiative came out is of college preaching, youth preaching. And those who are part of the preaching, please raise your hand. You don't need to get up. Raise your hand. Who are all part of that particular scrum? Initiative, youth college preaching. Okay, you're all. Okay, good. Thank you. And you're the scrum master for that, Prabhu? Padvidisha Prabhu scrum. Thank you. So thank you for coming. And please, everyone, feel free to ask questions at the end or whenever Prabhu allows.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lagopal Prabhu, and thank you everyone for being here on this weeknight, Monday night. I know it's inconvenient, and it really shows what I've already experienced, the great depth of devotion here in St. Louis ISKCON and the potency of Prabhupada's movement existing in all of you. So what I'm hoping to share tonight is some experiences that we have had in Gainesville and other places in diversifying our outreach and some of the strategies that have proven effective in that pursuit. But before I start, I do have to correct a mistake on the poster that Rupa Vilas Prabhu sent out. This said there was going to be a great Vaishnava here tonight. No, my only qualification is that I have no other qualification. I've just had to stay in ISKCON because I can't do anything else. So that's why I'm here. If you just stay around long enough, people give you some respect. So this last 15 years, I've been in ISKCON for 51 years now. And this last 17 years, last third of that has been the best part. And that joy is what I want to share with you tonight in this short PowerPoint, and some of the strategies, some of the happenings, and then some ideas for how to implement here in St. Louis. Okay, so I'll resume sharing the screen for all of you who are tuning in online. Can you hear me all right? Is everything okay? Yes. Okay, just let us know. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll be glad to share the PowerPoint also. Okay. All right. So, it's attracting Western devotees, and we do have to specifically talk about Western devotees because that is our shortcoming right now. But before we start, a little invocation here from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Atra patra vicharnahi nahi stana stana jai janha paya tanhakari prema tanam. In distributing love of Godhead, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates did not consider who was a fit candidate and who was not, nor where such distribution should or should not take place. They made no conditions. Wherever they got the opportunity, members of the Panchatattva distributed the love of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Here is an authoritative statement that in distributing love of Godhead, one should not consider whether the recipients are Europeans, Americans, Hindus, Muslims, and so forth. Krishna consciousness movement should be spread wherever possible, and one should accept those who thus become Vaishnavas as being greater than Brahmins, Hindus, or Indians. Haribo. Yes, and everyone is a spirit soul. We don't discriminate. We're happy to see anyone taking up Krishna consciousness, regardless of their bodily or ethnic or heritage situation. That's the principle that we're going to discuss tonight. So, Gainesville, Florida is, Srila Prabhupada visited one time. He had been invited to give many college lectures. So finally he said, I will lecture if the college will give a $1,000 honorarium. It was 1971, and that was a lot of money. And so the devotees in Gainesville at the University of Florida harangued the student council and got a $1,000 commitment. So Srila Prabhupada came for one day, 24 hours, and flew from New York to Jacksonville, and there was no airport in Gainesville at that time. So when he arrived, he described Gainesville as a remote place, far removed from the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. And indeed, on the globe, you see it's just about as far as you can get from mine. So my wife and I have lived in the Gainesville Alachua community for about 30 years. We finished raising our children, and in 2006, we were invited to come and run the center in Gainesville, which is a small college center. Alachua is a suburb of Gainesville, a small rural suburb. But there, devotees had established some successful schools, and many, many families had moved there over the years. So that community was thriving as a Grihastha community, but the college center in Gainesville was weak. So my friend Ritadvija Maharaj invited me to come. In the previous 10 years, only one person had joined in this preaching center. And then we applied some of the techniques I'm going to share starting in 2008. Since then, we've had 375 devotees who have either joined or come there for training. And primarily, almost all of them young people in their late teens, 20s. So at that time, there were 2 resident devotees. When my wife and I moved there, we doubled the population immediately. Now we have 35 resident devotees, and the beds are full almost all year round. Most of them are students. But here's a picture of the congregation or the residents there in ISKCON Gainesville now. This was 2 or 3 years ago. As you'll see, as I'll explain, it's run like a college. So people enroll, they stay for 1, 2, 3 semesters and then move on. So there's a constant flow. So what was the inspiration? Was this? Gainesville, Florida is, you see, it's the North America's Lower East Side, right? So we took inspiration from Prabhupada's place on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. What did he do there at Matchless Gifts on the Lower East Side? Well, first of all, let's take a look at the 3 things that he did that we're not doing, and that will change, turn the clock back to then when so many people were coming to Krishna consciousness from all varieties of backgrounds. So these three obstacles we'll discuss briefly. Complacency, that is close fine. Unsupported marketing. Like part of your resolution here is to increase the marketing, but if the marketing is not backed up, will it be effective? And finally, a lack of commitment from the leadership for the purpose of diversifying our congregation. So let's talk about these one at a time. Many temples in North America are mainly supported by the Hindu diaspora. This is, here in St. Louis, is very clear. And I just have to say, this is my first visit to St. Louis in about 47 years, as far as I can remember. 47 years ago, I was here. And I was here in those days when it was full of young ministers, enthusiastic brahmacharis and preachers. And after Srila Prabhupada's disappearance, there was a lot of chaos, a lot of disappointment, a lot of uncertainty, which resulted in both the members going on with their lives as grihastas and a lack of new people coming behind them to sustain the temples. That's where the congregation saved ISKCON in North America. Because ISKCON was the pioneer in so many cities, it was really the first available outlet for members of the Indian community. And that it has sustained practically all of our temples have gone through this pattern. After losing the momentum from Prabhupada's time, the Indian community stepped up and not just saved the temples, but wonderfully advanced in Krishna consciousness and became first initiated, second initiated, preachers, leaders, and that has kept the movement going. And now, from this point, we can go forward even more strongly than before. Now, a little bit about this point. Sometimes, because the temples are stable, there's not much urgency to reach out. We're going on, we're getting by. So this is true, and here's a picture of the Chicago temple. You see most of the congregations from the community. Most of our temples are this way. So we have to consider our audience. Do we preach the same way to the Indian community and to the Western community? Here's an interesting purport from Srila Prabhupada. To broadcast the cult of Krishna consciousness, one has to learn the possibility of renunciation in terms of country, time, and candidate. A candidate for Krishna consciousness in the Western countries should be taught about the renunciation of material existence. But one would teach candidates from a country like India in a different way. The teacher, Acharya, has to consider time, candidate, and country. He must avoid the principle of niyamagraha, that is, he should not try to perform the impossible. What is possible in one country may not be possible in another. The Acharya's duty is to accept the essence of devotional service. There may be a little change here and there as far as proper renunciation is concerned. That's such a strong word. Prabhupada did not like the word impossible, but he used it. So to go beyond complacency, we have to take a look at how to present according to our audience. So just a brief word about the Indian diaspora. This is the largest diaspora in the world. About 20 million, of which about 60 million are Hindu. And in India, Hindus are 80% of the population. In the world, they are about 15%. Hindus are about 15% of the world's population. But the Hindu diaspora is about 1/3 of 1% of the world's population, a tiny sliver of humanity. So what happens if our preaching outside of India? India is booming with the temples are growing, it's going very strong. But outside of India, if we just focus on the Hindu diaspora, what are the results? Well, one thing is we become increasingly irrelevant. Another is that we don't learn how to reach non-Hindu audiences. We don't learn that art. And after all, Srila Prabhupada once said, I am one Hindu. What can one Hindu do? This is what he was saying. And due to losing its unique international appeal, interest in India and ISKCON will dwindle not only in the West, but in India. That isn't it what set ISKCON apart in India when Srila Prabhupada brought back his disciples from the West? That's what stimulated the interest. And that continues to be the case. As you say, an international society it makes ISKCON different from all other Hindu organizations around the world. So also, if we become a minority ethnic religion, we'll be vulnerable to political and social change. We were looking at the campus today at SLU. Did I get that acronym right? And first thing you see when you walk on campus is the Muslim center. So I was asking Baladev, do they have a Hindu center? He said, no. Because Islam and Judaism are Abrahamic religions. Hindu is another tattva they don't want to bother with. See, so I'm in Florida where there's a very conservative, strong movement in the governorship, and we're just expecting any time that those things are going to start affecting our minority religions. But if our minority religion is rooted in a broad social spectrum, we have more strength. Just another side note on this, I was speaking with a friend who's preached in China, and Christian consciousness has been going in China, if you can believe that, for many, many years. And the government officially will not allow it, but they don't stop it as long as the pig does not get too fat. So one of the things that allows the devotees to be tolerated in China is that they do not adopt Indian customs. They make Krishna consciousness as Chinese as possible, with cuisine, with presentation, as much as possible. They make it look familiar, and therefore the government is more willing to tolerate. If they introduce a foreign cultural influence, the government gets disturbed. So our first solution to complacency is to reach out and to establish a comfortable environment for non-Hindus. This is what Srila Prabhupada did at 26 Second Avenue. Many of our experienced preachers here at Giriraj Maharaj, the devotees in Los Angeles, just got a separate building called the Mantra House, and they have programs there that are more geared for college students. The master of this is Devamrita Swami. This is his program in New Zealand, where he has attracted huge numbers of people from very diverse communities through creating a mode of presentation that is relevant to all, especially young people, regardless of their background. So what we need to do to reach out in an appropriate way could mean a variety of things: cuisine, familiar foods, a presentation that is not making assumptions that people understand reincarnation or Bhagavad Gita, or, in other words, putting it way down into first gear and explaining every term and every pastime and every reference thoroughly. These sort of adjustments are often better made in a separate environment, not a separate purpose, but just creating like in Gainesville, we set up a Tuesday night program, Taco Tuesday, that was geared primarily for Western audiences, and then a Friday night program, which was geared primarily for Indian audiences. And both of them have been successful in their respective ways. And as the participants progress in Krishna consciousness, they can more easily interact with the other programs. So then when they start going to the Tuesday program, then they move into the temple. When they start going to the Friday program, then they move into the temple. This is so this diversity of presentation is important. It's hard to have both on top of each other, but it is possible to have them work in an integrated way, which we'll discuss in a few minutes, specifically here about St. Louis. So obstacle number 2 is incomplete marketing. And by the way, anytime you have a question or want to share some reflection on this, please just feel free, okay? And Amish Prabhu, you'll tell me if somebody calls online. Have a question? Okay, thank you. Okay, so again, you have these objectives to increase Western preaching through college preaching, through more book distribution and other outreach. But outreach without inreach is incomplete marketing. Let me explain. Suppose you promoted a product, but when people wanted to buy it, you had no inventory. How would your business do? Or suppose you had a service, right? And when people call for service, there's no one to do it. So our efforts to distribute books, to do college programs are incomplete if we don't have ashrams with which we can close the sale. We get people interested, they want to know more, we need to be ready for those people. So creating ashrams, they give immediate shelter to sincerely aspiring devotees of all communities, primarily young people. Most ISKCON temples like this one were established by devotees living in ashrams. By the way, you know the meaning of this word ashram? Remember the verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam, is useless labor. So ashrama means a place where valuable activities are taking place. No wasted time, ashram. So our temples, 50 or so in North America, were primarily established from young people living in ashrams. Here's Srila Prabhupada in Chicago in 1975. I think HG Prabhu is probably in there somewhere. I had the good fortune of attending this, and these young men and women had joined the initial temple, like in St. Louis. It was a house, and then they distributed books and raised money, and they were able to purchase this former YMCA building in Evanston, which served as a very nice temple for some years. Now they have an even better location in Rogers Park. And there was very little congregation to speak of at that time. So congregations later grew around these temples and now support them. So the ashrams made congregations. Now the question is, can congregations make ashrams? That's what we want to show you how to do, how it's not only desirable, but possible and blissful to do. So some congregational members naturally have reservations about ashrams. It's very natural because, as we read in the Shastra, Atmanam Manyate Jagat. Everyone sees the world the way I see it. Right? So our congregation members, you have never needed to live in ashrams to adopt Krishna consciousness. You did it at home, right? You learned, you read the books, you associated with devotees, you came to the temple, and you have become successful in your spiritual lives through Prabhupada's teachings. So what is the need of an ashram? The problem is that Westerners, those from non-Hindu backgrounds, need an acculturation. They need a whole cultural transformation that you don't require. The ashram gives that. So sometimes people say, but why we don't want to just create a place where losers can come and live for cheap or free, right? Why should we support that? Well, if ashrams run properly, there's no lazies or crazies. And we have all of the structures in place through our 15 years of experience in Gainesville, how to share so the ashram attracts people who are actually progressing. Another question, it's not necessary to be a devotee, but they are essential for training devotees of non-Hindu backgrounds. I've experienced this personally, and Baladev can attest, Vinanda can attest, Chakra can attest. How far could we have gone in Krishna consciousness if we were not living in the temple? If we were not going to Mangal Arati every day, if we were not taking prasadam every day, if it was just dependent on us to turn our homes into a temple, I don't think we could have gone very far. You can do, but the Westerners, by and large, cannot. So they are essential to close the sale, to have complete marketing in our efforts to do outreach. Ashrams are not relevant. A lot of our congregational members feel it's just something foreign, something that we don't really need. But one thing that we've experienced repeatedly in Gainesville is this, that ashrams may help your children be more fixed in their spiritual lives. Why? Because, for better or worse, they're being raised in the West. And they are charged then with trying to relate to mostly people from the West. And the people from the West find their parents' religion irrelevant or bizarre even. Then they're in this dichotomy to choose between their parents' values and the values of the people with whom they're trying to fit in. Ashrams solve that problem because in the ashram, the students from all backgrounds bond. Most of our Indian students in Gainesville have never really met or associated much with Westerners before. But when they move in the ashram, they become intimate friends. And similarly, most of the Western devotees have never associated with Indian students before, and they become intimate friends. So this allows the children of our congregational members to see the value and relevance of Krishna consciousness to their peer group. And it's a powerful incentive to adopt and embrace and practice Krishna consciousness. Sometimes congregational members who are supporting the temple by their tithes and their hard work, it's just too much money and manpower to start. It does take an investment to start, an investment of resources, but in the long run, they will generate more. How they generate more? Through book distribution, they generate more through perhaps prasadam distribution. And in our ashrams, we also have many students who practice bhakti, sadhana bhakti, but they're working outside or they're going to school, so they pay tuition. They don't pay rent. We do not rent rooms. We run an educational institution, and students enroll, and part of their enrollment privilege is to stay and to be provided accommodations. You see, very important to understand. So those students who are paying tuition contribute to the overhead and the maintenance of the temple. But initially, it will not bring much revenue, but in time it will pay for itself, and over a long time it will be a source of increased revenue for the temple in a variety of ways. Any questions? Okay, so these are some of the reasons why congregations may be reluctant to start ashram. Now, though both ashram residents and congregational members can be pure devotees, there are differences in their living situations. For example, congregants earn personal money full-time. That's most are employed and they work full-time. Those who live in ashrams have little or no personal money. So it is a great austerity. One has to postpone economic development to live in the ashrams. Congregants, because they are engaged in their professions, they have part-time at most available for preaching. Ashramites, in many cases, can give full-time to the mission. It's like in the Mormon church, the young men and women give 2 years to the mission. So in the same way, young men and women who take up Krishna consciousness often are inspired to say, take a gap year or to devote some time to spreading Krishna consciousness because it's meant so much to them. And they can do it full time, which is so valuable for our mission. Congregants have family duties. The ashramites do not have families yet. They're going through the brahmachari period or brahmacharini periods before entering grihastha life, which allows them to then be adhikaris, those who can be capable of maintaining a temple in their household. They have, because of their spiritual training in their youth. Congregants are materially established. The ashramites are materially insecure. And so it is an austerity for them to stay. They have to feel like, okay, I'm just trusting Krishna. I'm not going to have any economic plan for a period of time, so I can give my life to serving the deities and serving the mission. So you see, it's an austerity for someone to commit to living in an ashram. So another facet of this early days of ISKCON that Srila Prabhupada showed was that there were men's and women's ashrams in the West. Now, in the West, most young people are accustomed to that environment. In India, women's ashrams are very rare. There are groups like the Brahma Kumaris who are exclusively for ladies, but the idea of men's ashrams and women's ashrams in the same community is considered very inappropriate. Not so in the West. Srila Prabhupada instructed his disciples to have a brahmacharini temple in every brahmacharini ashram in every temple. Why? When there are ladies present, there is a family atmosphere, and that attracts young men also. They're used to it. When we have tried all men ashrams in ISKCON in North America, they have struggled and usually failed. But when we have men's and women's ashrams, carefully segregated, and yet equal opportunity for both to have spiritual growth, those have been successful. Here's a picture of Srila Prabhupada in 1967 in San Francisco. Look at the young men and women. Incredible devotees came from this group. From left to right, there's Jayananda Prabhu, Jamuna Prabhu, Govinda Dasi is there, Shyamasundar Prabhu, Malati Prabhu. these devotees who have done so much service, made such a contribution. These were just young boys and girls who had joined a few months earlier, but because of this family mood, everybody felt welcomed. Notice how all the ladies are up front, and Srila Prabhupada is presiding like a proud father over his little family. I can tell you when I joined, when my wife joined, there was no men's side or ladies' side. Everybody just came up to the deities. When it was Harinam time, everyone just piled in the van, men and women. Nobody thought twice about it. It was just a platonic relationship. It was only later when some ideas were introduced that no, we really have to have this strict segregation, and saffron is better. The goal of life is to be a brahmachari. That was sort of the mentality in the 70s. And ladies were marginalized. So for Western ladies, they're not interested in that. Very difficult to attract them. But when there's the same mood that Srila Prabhupada showed, men are welcome, women are welcome, everyone can lead kirtan, everyone can give class, everyone is even addressed as Prabhu. Prabhupada addressed his female disciples as Prabhu. Did you know that? Of course, Prabhu means sir, it's a masculine, but his point was to help the young devotees grasp this idea that everybody is my master. So he didn't make the fine discrimination. So these are the examples that Prabhupada set that worked so well before the saffron wave engulfed ISKCON later on. Men's and women's ashrams, though strictly segregated, attract new devotees of both genders. Here's another picture of some of this was maybe 6 or 8 years ago, I forget. And you see happy young men, happy young women, they have their respective places to live. They come together for service, they come together for sadhana, but they stay separately, and we preach to them all the time. No private communications, no private meetings. We preach also that, look, 95% of you are going to be grihastas, but this is just not the time to start that part of your life. Now you need spiritual training. Just be patient, and you'll surely be married in the near future, but you'll be able to be married and maintain your spiritual life. This is how we help keep those young hormones at bay while they're in the ashram. And so far in our 15 years, we've only had 2 or 3 instances of inappropriate behavior, which resulted in dismissal from the ashram. So when the presentation is right, these things can be handled easily. Here's another picture. This is a more recent. This is our 2021 class, I think, 2022. This was from February of this year, gathering for Nityananda Trayodasi. Just take a moment and look. You see people from all different backgrounds here, and very happy together in their kirtan and in their practice of bhakti. This is still possible to do. And the magic that has, by Krishna's grace, just manifested in Gainesville, that we're now trying to export to other temples, wherever there is interest. So this brings us to the next point, that the leadership needs to be committed to the mission or the purpose of diversifying the congregation. So we want to make new local devotees, but not enough to make an organized effort. So what does an organized effort mean? First of all, can we make devotees? We go out and drag them back in, or maybe assemble them like Dr. Frankenstein. We'll make devotees, we'll put this piece and this piece. It would give a whole new meaning to the phrase, all glories to the assembled devotees. We can't make them. Krishna has to send them. So when the spider is hungry, what does he do? Does he chase insects? What does he do? Spins the web, yes, spins the web to catch them. So if we do appropriate outreach and we've established a physical ashram facility, the next thing we need is what? Pardon me? A leader. Exactly, yes. And generally, we think of a leader like this guy. It has to be somebody who's a real charismatic, powerful personality. That's really not the case. It just has to be somebody who cares. This was a young lady who was our ashram leader about 10 years ago. She was a graduate from the University of Florida who had finished her college while living in the ashram, and afterwards just wanted to be an ashram leader. And under her direction, for the year or two she did it, dozens of nice devotees joined. This 21-year-old girl with 1 year's experience in Krishna consciousness. It just takes somebody who cares and who understands the needs of newcomers. But such a person needs to be facilitated. So that's the responsibility of the leadership of the community. Okay, we want somebody in this position. We don't call it a bhakti leader, but more like, an ashram leader. There should be a young person, ideally, but not necessarily. It could be male, it could be female, it could be a couple to start. Now we have a men's ashram leader and a women's ashram leader because our congregation has, or our enrollment has grown sufficiently. But it can start with one person. But they must be a full-time person. And what do? They maintain the ashrams, they schedule activities for the students, they take part in the outreach, and if no one has joined, they pray. That's their job. They go to Krishna Balaram, please send some students. There's a tendency to, if we have somebody on our staff and there's nobody for them to care for, then let's get them cooking and offering or doing something practical. You've got to refrain from that. This is their meditation and prayer constantly. So Srila Prabhupada was the original ashram leader. He was the original outreach director. You remember how he cared for the new disciples when they first joined, right? He'd sit with them for hours and hear their problems, etc. And then he continued with that mood of caring and sharing. That's what we want to capture. So again, these 3 steps: establish a comfortable environment for diverse communities, open ashrams physically, give them a place to live, and then have somebody ready to supervise them. These are the 3 challenges and the 3 steps to making inreach that will complement our outreach. So in our, just this last point I'd like to share, this is a standard logical conclusion or methodology. You have a thesis, you have the opposite thesis. If they work symbiotically, then you have a synthesis of the 2 extremes. So in our case, we're dealing with the thesis that Bhagavad Dharma does not restrict pure devotees to the Hindu community. On the other hand, we have the antithesis. ISKCON at present, in reality, is primarily for those with Hindu background. So the synthesis is that devotees of all backgrounds work together to recruit and to reach local communities. That will be our unique contribution to the Gaudiya Vaishnava movement. But before we wrap up, I just want to conclude with some realization that I've been sharing with some friends that, when Srila Prabhupada stepped on the Jaladuta, he was taking an enormous risk, wasn't he? 70 years old, and he was risking, he had absolutely no guarantee of anything, but he was taking that big risk. And then even when he found a few friends and rented the storefront at 26 Second Avenue, he didn't have any means to pay the rent. He was taking a risk, just depending on Krishna. To me, there is no greater echo of that risk than to establish an ashram for young people. Because again, we can't go out and drag them in. We have to make an atmosphere that's so nice that Krishna as a super soul will inspire people to want to join. That's what has worked in Gainesville. It's just miraculous, miraculous. The hardest part for me at first was just not looking surprised when somebody asked to move in. We took a little risk. We arranged someone to lead. We made some rooms available, and Krishna just started reciprocating like anything. Now we have 6 Krishna houses going. Dallas and Houston, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Philadelphia, Toronto, and Gainesville. And Gainesville is going strong. Toronto is going strong. Dallas is going strong. Houston is struggling. Philadelphia is struggling. Grand Rapids is doing amazing things. Instead of a temple there, the congregation decided we're going to open an ashram. Instead of buying a temple building, they bought an apartment building with a small temple that is for housing students. And they're getting some remarkable results. So the point is, I'm here tonight asking you to take a risk. I can't come and guarantee if you do these things, Krishna will send people, because that's up to Krishna. All I know is how to do the in-reach nicely and professionally so that people will be attracted. That much I can show you. Then the results are up to Krishna. But here in St. Louis, you have an excellent facility for this purpose. I understand that the strategy for your community development is to get a temple that better serves the congregation. And this is very limited for that reason. Limited parking, dangerous neighborhood, small space, relatively small space. So you're making this risk to get a bigger facility in hopes to develop the congregation, which is brilliant. And part of that risk, as I understand from Lal Gopal Prabhu and Rupa Vilas Prabhu, is that you're considering leaving this facility to be used as an ashram facility. I just want to say that to me is an absolutely brilliant idea. I've been through the facility. It will work beautifully for this purpose. Being so close to the campus, if we have the proper supervision and program, we can have students living here, practicing sadhana and attending the classes. And they do well in the school and they have a great time. When we say it's just like regular college, except the parties are in the morning. But then the question may be, suppose by Krishna's grace we're successful. You have established a new temple that serves the congregation well, and then you have the old temple, which is serving the youth well. Are they just two separate entities? And the answer is no. They actually work together very closely. It's just that the presentation can be catered in each place for the respective audiences. But the Krishna houses in Houston, for example, and all of them, for that matter. On Sundays, when the congregation comes, these students from the Krishna house are all there. They cut up the vegetables for the feast, and then they're serving. They're doing the kirtan. It's very enlivening for the congregation. And the students are well aware that the congregation is providing the facilities, and they're very happy to reciprocate in this way. When there's festivals, everybody goes out to the main temple. When there is, when householders would like to have a home program, they can invite the students and get to know them. And the students get an idea of what is Krishna conscious Grihastha life. It's a win-win situation. They're not segregated, they are joined. Members of the congregation are invited to come and give Bhagavatam classes. They're coached how to give a class that will be relevant to these newcomers, because it's a whole different mode of presentation. So I just want to assure you, this is the vision for all of our Krishna houses, that the congregations who have saved the temples will now be able to enhance their service to Srila Prabhupada. Paschatya Deshatarani, by preaching the message of Krishna consciousness in the West to the local communities by our combined effort, East and West. That is a powerful and unprecedented combination in the world. All right, thank you very much. If you'd like to read anything more, there's a PDF book you can download at this website, iskonashramites.com. We're also going to be printing that soon. I'm also available if you have specific questions at these email addresses, which I'm happy to share with you. And we also started a program called the Nitai Corps, like the Peace Corps, but Nitai Corps, in which young men and women can get training as ashram leaders. And we ask them to commit 1 year, 3 months of training, and 9 months in the field. Our goal is to help new projects like this have some support from experienced ashram leaders. Again, can't promise, but we do our best to provide that. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada. All right, thank you. So, any questions now? Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you for the very nice discussion. It's really enriching and a lot of things we learn. But I guess the entire presentation was around 3 parameters that you highlighted, like one is competency, second is the unsupported marketing.
Yes.
And within the unsupported marketing, the biggest challenge that you highlighted is a lot of the Westerners they have cultural background, which we are trying to give them, is missing.
Right.
And that is actually serving us the biggest challenge. Probably could serve as a big challenge. Can you suggest some key areas which are falling up in the Krishna house or somewhere like where to fill that gap? Can you see
The best advice I have, I'm not sure if everyone could hear online. The question is, can we give advice for appropriate outreach to have complete marketing? Right. Yeah, my perspective has changed a lot on how to preach Krishna consciousness since this ashram experience, because I used to think doing book distribution and Harinam was our outreach, right? But now I feel differently. Our in-reach comes first. We just we can put outreach on hold while we get our in-reach together. We have the schedule, we have the leader, we have the facilities, everything lined up so that Krishna can send people. Then when we resume the Harinam and the book distribution, we can close the deal for the best people. Oh, you're interested? Yes, come to our Tuesday night program. Oh, you're interested? You like the devotees? Okay, why not try enrolling for a semester and see what you think? And then who does the Harinam and the book distribution? Well, it's the new students. So looking at it not from the point of view of the recipients of the books and the Harinam, but the ones who give, that is a glorious spiritual adventure for them. You see, and it elevates their Krishna consciousness. So I see it much more now. These outreach programs are done by the students for their benefit, first and foremost. And vicariously, others are benefited from their efforts. You know, Srila Prabhupada used a phrase that's popular in Bengal, that you fry the fish in its own oil. So when we bring in new students, very quickly, they will help bring in more new students. So rather than, it's almost a ritual that we have to do book distribution because Prabhupada wanted book distribution. Yes, we want to do book, but what is the point of it? Just to get books out in the hopes in the long term, somebody will want to be a devotee. If we have the ashram nicely organized, at least in our experience thus far, Krishna will send the devotees. And they will do the book distribution. And then more people will come as a result. So that's, in a nutshell, outreach can be put on hold while the inreach is getting organized in our opinion. Not given up altogether, but just minimize the energy we put internally. Any other questions or thoughts? Yes, sir. Any question? Yes. Yes.
Women's nature and all looks to me.
And men's nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what my point is, my question is I saw in Krishna house also, women climbed into the ashram and ashram. Generally. So at one point of time, we meet somewhere else when we talk. So how do you, if anyone wants to become a brahmachari or something who are separated, so how do you maintain that dignity, that purity, while maintaining this kind of ashram?
The question is, if we have women's ashram, how do we maintain the dignity and purity and facilitate those who want to be brahmacharis?
Wants to practice, like, otherwise
They want to practice strict.
they are falling down.
Well, yeah, first, there is a subtle mood of family mood that we need to create in order to attract newcomers. And when the newcomers are in for a while, they will rise to their own level of practice. So sometimes men want to be brahmacharis and they're encouraged, facilitated, but I can tell you, a brahmachari who is not afraid to interact with ladies is better than a brahmachari who is adverse. You see, because aversion and attachment are just flip side of the same coin. These brahmacharis learn how to be gentlemen, how to be respectful without, and how to see women as spiritual equals. And that is, to me, a more solid position of brahmacharya life for those who want it. You're talking about, oh, don't the men and women get together and they start, no. That doesn't happen. It happens very rarely. It happens very rarely because we insist on the rule of 3. Men and women cannot be alone in a car or in a room. There always has to be a third person. We insist on no private communications. And these are grounds for being dismissed from the ashram, violating these things. And then we preach. We preach. You're here to build a relationship with Krishna. There's one thing to know, that Western kids have been through so many relationships, they're burned out.
That's why.
And you say, okay, now you can be here in the ashram and take a break from all that for a while. Doesn't that sound nice? Yes, that sounds good. This is just, again, an example of a cultural difference, East and West. But when the ashram's nicely run, there's just this warm family atmosphere where everybody is accepted. And sometimes it's true, boys and girls get crushes on each other. We preach. I say, like, a crush is like COVID on the subtle body. It's an infection. It just has to run its course. It's not going to kill you if you handle it properly. And we also speak very positively about marriage. See, this also takes the edge off. Remember, the brahmachari mood is, oh, marriage is for losers. You get married and you're doing 25 to life. This has been the prevailing mood amongst the spirit core of brahmacharis, right? And it just is very unhealthy for everybody. Rather, we preach, no, you're going to be a grihasta most likely, but before you get married, you want to have your spiritual life well established. And then you'll be able to attract a partner who is similarly well established in their spiritual life. Then you can have continuation of your sadhana and your growth in spiritual life as married people. So by being upfront about it and positive about it and encouraging it, we help take the edge off the natural male-female attraction that's there. Yeah. I call this preaching white power. Instead of saffron, white, we emphasize, yes, grihasta is a step up. Srila Prabhupada was asked, is it a fall down if a brahmachari gets married? He said, what is the question of fall down? Brahmacharya is already the lowest position. Is that all right, Prabhu? Okay. All right, any other questions? Any thoughts, reflections? Yes.
So you mentioned that those who move to the ashrams, they are kind of like materially insecure and they have to take a lot of austerities. So now when we see the college students, they are there mostly to how they can finish the school, that they can earn money, they can enjoy life.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we really present to them that this is an alternative where they don't have to really run after material life, rather they can explore the spiritual aspects.
Right. So the question is, how do we convince students who are pursuing their responsible jobs, career, etc., then to stay in the ashram where they're materially insecure for some time? The answer is that they get a taste. We start our presentation for our college students or employees, for that matter, that stay in the ashram. You can continue with your work or continue with your studies, but you can also learn bhakti. And the schedule is modified somewhat, like Mangalarti is at 6 a.m. And they are responsible for sadhana 5 days a week. 2 days they're on their own. See, but they have to attend the class and the kirtan and morning program. They have to follow 4 principles. They have to chant 8 rounds. That's mandatory to stay in the ashram. So what we found is that this immersion experience serves as their recreation. And college students spend so much time on recreation. But instead of the football games and the bars or whatever they do, they're doing sadhana. And then they start off initially just finishing their college degree. We encourage them, if people want to drop out of college to move in, we generally don't allow them to do that. So in fact, we've had cases where people were going to drop out, but because we insisted, they stayed in school while they're living in the ashram and graduated. So we encourage that, we support it. After they graduate, often they feel this has been such a nice experience. I want to take a gap year and just invest in it more deeply. And then those people will come and sometimes help establish a Krishna house in another center. They're very rare and precious, and we don't pressure anybody, but that does happen. And a lot depends if they have a big student debt, they don't have that luxury. If they have family in India who are depending on them, or they require work in order to stay in America. So it certainly doesn't apply in every case, but everyone is encouraged to finish their degree and then consider doing some more depth in Krishna consciousness. But we have people who from all kinds of backgrounds, not just college students, we have high school dropouts, we have Harvard graduates. I mean, it's the whole spectrum. Indian, Western, it's just, Krishna inspires seekers from all kinds of communities and situations if we are ready to take care of them. Yes, Nagapapa.
I think there's a question in the chat.
Here we have a chat question. Let's see. I could read it here. Hi, Krishna Prabhu. So grateful for your presence in St. Louis. I'm not in a position to turn on the video. Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. No questions then. Please post questions if any alongside. Okay. We'll do our best. That was not a question. That was a request. But I think we're pretty much out of questions. Anything else?
I have a question, Prabhu.
Please.
I really want to first appreciate your very nourishing here and clarity and the approach. I'm really appreciating it. My question is that when we join your ashram, these children are and they are receiving the love and affection atmosphere when they come, and their emotional needs turned up. So really, do you have a facility where the things start coming out and they need it?
Yeah.
Because they're finding a shelter in you. Because
Yes.
what I'm seeing is you are amazing in that, and they must be sharing your heart with you and how you help them to for their emotional needs.
Yes. How do we help students with their emotional needs? Yes. Our system includes a mentor for every student, of which we draw on the congregation often for that purpose. And the congregational member might, as their service, take mentorship for 4 or 5 students, giving them a half an hour a week. We give the mentor some training in pastoral counseling, so they're prepared for that task. And if it works well, the students have that confidential emotional outlet through a mentor. Pastoral counseling has its limits. We can't take care of mental health issues, for example. And that happens sometimes. So our policy is, if you're under the care of a mental health professional, you have to maintain that while you're staying in the ashram, taking your medications, having your meetings. Okay, but yes, young people do have many emotional needs, and with modest amount of training, devotees can learn to help them release it in a safe way, and that helps them grow in their Krishna consciousness. Then the effect of chanting and sadhana begins to impact them in the narta nivritti, and they feel more empowered to deal with their problems. Okay. Your question? Yes, please. Deepak.
You mentioned having ashram will help the children to be devotees.
Yes.
I didn't quite catch that.
Yes. Do you have children? Your children are like Prahlad Maharaj? Yeah, okay.
Like Prahlad, they're not.
They're not? Oh, okay. I'm going to say you're very fortunate. Oh, they like, yes. So your children are being raised in a different environment from the one in which you were raised, correct? And naturally, they want to relate to their peer group. So they're in this position where their parents have values that are not consistent with the values they commonly encounter in their peer group. So then they are in this position of having to decide between one or the other. I think there's a phrase for it, ABCD, right? The American-born confused Deshi, yes, right? So those young people, young men and women, find great shelter in the ashram because they can have a peer group that shares their parents' spiritual values. And it allows them to develop their own spiritual values and to let them blossom fully. They feel a great joy and relief. They also feel a great conviction in Krishna consciousness because they see this actually is for everybody. Not just my community, but it's for everybody. And so it benefits the children of the congregation in both these ways. Even if they don't live in the ashram, but they get to know people who are in the ashram. And they make friends with them, and they have a community with them. They share Harinam with them. They may come to classes. They'll cook offerings with them. And even children of my generation of Prabhupada disciples, many of whom are estranged from Krishna consciousness, are not interested. They have found the same kind of shelter in the ashram experience. And after, in their case, they want to be rebellious and try things in material life. So we call them the organics because they're born in Krishna consciousness. And then we call the converts GMOs, which means Gauranga modified organisms. So the organics, very often, because of ISKCON's growth or a lack of growth, organics have, most cases, they've never met anyone who is a convert. They've only associated with other people like them who are children of devotee families, questioning their parents' values. On the other hand, the GMOs, the converts, meet the organics and they say, wow, you've been doing this your whole life? And all of a sudden the organics say, well, yeah, I guess I have. You see, so there's a good dynamism between children of devotee families and newcomers. Okay, all right. Here's the question. Hare Krishna Prabhu, what attracts the Western devotees the most? Philosophy or meditation or prasadam? It's actually the friendship of the other devotees that attracts them the most. We have in Gainesville, we have a prasadam distribution program. It's very successful. We don't have a congregation there. Alachua has the congregation, but we have this prasadam program called Krishna Lunch. It's been going for 50 years, and it brings enough revenue to support the temple. So people think, well, if you want to have an ashram, then you have to have a lunch program. No. That's just how we support ourselves. But the very few people come to the ashram from the lunch program. A few, and very nice ones, but not by any means anything near a majority, just a tiny fraction. But what we know that they're going to be devotees when they make friends with the devotees in the ashram. When they start feeling more connected with the ashram residents, they're finished. That's when we know that. They just want to be with the ashram residents. And one young man was telling me recently that I've been coming to the temple for a while. I've been meeting all the devotees. And the other night I was out with my friends at the bar and I started wondering, what am I doing here? Now he's moving in the ashram. So the philosophy helps, absolutely. The chanting helps and the prasadam help. But it's the association of devotees that really is the attraction. So this takes time. It takes time. Our first term, we had 3 people move in, and it was a miracle. But those 3 people, they were kind of testing the waters. They'd sneak out and go to Starbucks. But they were having a good time. After it takes a month or 2 for the light bulb to go on. And then all of a sudden they say, well, this is fun. This chanting, this kirtan, this whole thing, this is fun. I'm having a good time. And then the next semester we had 3 more. And then it was 12. And all of a sudden we had this critical mass where there's this group of young, enthusiastic people sharing Krishna consciousness. It's like a magnet for the newcomers. They want to be part of it. You guys seem a lot happier than other people I know. What is your secret? Hey, just chant, have some prasadam. All right, well, we're having a program Tuesday night, come on over, and they start socializing and integrating like that. So that's the answer to your question. For the Westerners, it's a must. For the young Indian students, it's a great joy. Many of the international students here are very lonely. In fact, suicide is a big issue at the University of Florida for international students. But when they find a community they can be part of and experiences they can share, ones that even reflect their parents' values, although their parents often freak out. We want you to be religious, but not that religious. But anyway, the point is, they find great shelter in the community. That's what we hope to establish here in St. Louis.
So most of our members or congregation stays away from the temple. So what is your vision of how the congregation can help to make this happen?
Well, how can the congregation help make it happen? Create the facilities, and then be involved in appropriate levels. Like some congregational members would say, I'd really like to give classes. That's fine. So we'll coach you in how to give classes to this particular audience. Some congregational members really enjoy hosting these young men and women in their homes and providing them prasadam. It's a beautiful dadati pradikranati. And they come over and do kirtan, and the students have never experienced anything like that before. And they see the deities in the home and how the family is Krishna conscious. It's very powerful. The one caveat with interaction from the congregation and the students is not to try to correct them. If the students do things wrong, which they inevitably do, they're eating with the left hand, they're pointing their feet at the deity, you name it. It's the duty of the ashram leader to train them and not the congregant. So if you see the student doing something wrong, just tell the ashram leader and let it go through proper channels, because they're trained in how to present these things to the newcomers. So it takes a great degree of tolerance, again, in the mood of Srila Prabhupada. The congregation needs to take a risk to provide the facility, and then another exercise in tolerance to kind of look the other way while these young people are getting on their feet in spiritual life. Yeah.
Can you tell the difference between your Western program and, of course, Indian Sunday program? We know what it is. How does it differ from the regular program, the Western program?
Yeah, I was talking with Baladev about this earlier. On our Taco Tuesday program, we have taco. This is sort of a cultural thing in the West. And Taco Tuesday is a common social event, but and tacos are easy to make. But the idea at this event is that people will come and we'll have kirtan. Kirtan's the universal language, and then after kirtan, we'll bring up the topic of the night. I was just looking at tomorrow night's program. Let's see if I can find it here. But yeah, truth is beauty. That's the topic. So the facilitator is a devotee. We'll say, okay, our topic tonight is truth. They'll do an icebreaker so everyone gets to know everybody. And then, okay, what does this mean to you? Truth is beauty. Share what you think about that. And then all the students will be invited to speak. And some of them are devotees, most of them are not. But the facilitator listens to everybody. And then after everyone has spoken, then the facilitator will then say, okay, here's something from Bhagavad Gita on this point. And now let's have dinner. So they get kirtan and prasad, and there's a lot of speculation that the facilitator tolerates, because that creates a mood of welcome, of inclusion, of respect. That's so much important to people, for people to feel attracted to be part of it. So these are the kind of things we can provide training for all of it, but it looks quite different than like a kirtan lecture. You might also do some japa, like a half a round, a quarter round of japa meditation. So it's very, very soft and with listening to a lot of nonsense.
Which day of the week is best for students? Because
Right.
it's a challenge to
Yeah. Well, Fridays are good because if the program's like at a usual relatively manageable time for us, like 7 o'clock. Because the students typically are just starting a long night. So they come over, they have dinner, they have kirtan, dinner, and it's like kind of a nice way to start your Friday night. So Fridays are good. Tuesdays are nice. We found those are the best, Tuesdays and Fridays. We also do a Wednesday club program on campus, which is mostly just japa. Okay, but you know, it's hard to say what the local circumstances might be.
So we resumed our preaching and worship. And the challenge is you can just say.
Yeah, but before we used to have it on Fridays. Mostly we found that they prefer to go to club rather than come to the Bhakti club.
Did you have prasadam for them?
We did have prasadam. Yeah, we had yoga and then some discussion and then prasadam. Typically they come for the yoga and then just leave. Some of them just take the prasadam plate and leave. They don't stay for the discussion.
I see.
And then we change it to Thursday and we still have the same issue that people are not coming. Not many people are coming.
I see.
So we're just wondering which day is the best so that we can attract the maximum number of people.
Thursday would be one that we probably try, but it's just hard to say. Maybe also the nature of the program could be adjusted.
Is your training program available online for us to stick to? No, we have to be there in person.
I don't know if they put it online, but Friday is a more standard program. At the Krishna house.
The training that you said you give training.
The training, oh yeah, training's online. Yes. We record all of the classes. Okay, so honestly, I don't know, but frankly, again, everything changes when your in-reach is organized. We start with the in-reach, don't worry about maybe keep the club going if a minimal way, but when you get your in-reach together, then you'll get better ideas. Or you can try things knowing that you got the background. You're ready when you find that special person.
Yeah, I like this idea of discuss, like asking each of them for their opinions.
Yeah.
Because that way they could feel that okay, they're contributing something, they might come and some. I mean, they usually like to speak.
Yes, that's right.
They don't want to listen.
No.
So that might help.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're all set. Prasadam is ready. Thank you for your patience, and Krishna Balaram, Srila Prabhupada willing, we will get to work together in the future. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Did not have much time. He is traveling, and in between he had this one day. So this afternoon actually. So somehow he managed to give us time today to come and give this wonderful presentation. And I sincerely thank you for so many of you coming today, and also those who participated online. Thank you all for coming. This is a progress that you can see as a result of our summit program. So thanks to Rupavilas Prabhu, especially who organized and spoke to Prabhu and did all the legwork to get him here. So thanks to him. And thanks to the Scrum team, Padmanisha Prabhu and his team for take this for next, whatever the next step is. We'll talk about that more. So with that said, thank you all for coming. The prasadam is 2 box to save your time. So please, you can take prasadam, and if you want to still come and talk to Prabhu, anything is right here. Happy to answer your questions. Thank you, and please one more time, give Prabhu. And we need your blessings so we can see some changes here. And, you have a blessing in the background?
No. I have a gift for the temple library there. Ooh. This is a book called The God Who Dances.
A God Who Dances. Go to our book library.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey.
And you said you can share the presentation?
Yes, Prabhu, I'll send it to you right now. Okay. Jai. Good night, everyone online.
Let's do a quick
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
And then you all can have things to share.
Thanks.